Yo, welcome to this short little video that I've entitled, Do I Need an Expensive Guitar to Sound Expensive? For me, buying a guitar is a bit like buying a pair of trainers. There's a point at which you're not spending more money to get a better shoe, you're paying more money to get a better label on the shoe. I'll explain a little bit more about what that actually means later on. In my career as a guitar teacher, I've met hundreds of guitarists from all sorts of different backgrounds and ability levels, and one of the topics that seems to reoccur in conversation is whether the expense of an instrument will influence the sound of that instrument. And there seems to be this kind of idea out there that in order to be a professional sounding guitarist, you need to have a professional level instrument. Obviously, everyone's got their own ideas about what this actually means and what the price point is that makes an instrument a professional instrument. But the general idea is the more you spend, then the better that guitar is going to sound. To be quite honest, this idea is horse. So where does this idea come from? Well, I think it's really simple. If you're watching a guitarist that you admire, who is a famous guitarist, playing on stage at a festival or in a music video, that person is probably being supported by a musical instrument making company behind the scenes, i.e. they're being given guitars. I'm not saying that all musicians that play expensive guitars are professional guitarists who have been given instruments. There's plenty of guitarists out there that have bought them off of their own backs. But the point is, if you see someone on stage that you admire playing a guitar, they're playing a particular kind of guitar, and so you associate that particular kind of guitar with that musician. And the chances are that that guitar is going to be a pretty expensive guitar. So as a beginner, you see those kinds of guitars and think, well, if only I had that Gibson Les Paul that cost $6,000, I'd sound like Slash. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. I think I'm just going to tell a little anecdote at this point, which highlights this idea really well. And I'm going to come across as a bit of a dick when I tell this story. Because my reaction to this situation probably wasn't what the person who I had the interaction with was expecting. So I turn up at a friend's house, right? And there's a mutual friend there who has a guitar, a new guitar, a brand new custom-made guitar that had been made for him specifically by a company that I believe was called Storm Shadow, who have recently gone out of business, I think. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, so he'd been waiting for this guitar for a few months, and he sort of excitedly told me, I've got this guitar, you need to look at this guitar, you need to have a play of this guitar. So he opens the case and, he passes me the guitar, I put the strap over me, and I kind of sit there with the guitar, and I'm sort of feeling the frets a little bit, as I do when I'm playing a guitar that I haven't played before. And I play a bend, and then I stop. I take the strap off, and I give him back the guitar, and he sort of looked at me like, and he went, "What do you think?" And I said, "It's a guitar." So I think he was expecting me to be kind of like, "Oh my God, mate, this is an amazing instrument and it's incredible," and blah, blah, blah. But to me, it just felt like a guitar. He'd spent £2,500 on this thing. This was, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. It was a really expensive instrument. Did I think that it was going to kind of change my world by playing it? No. And I've played loads of really expensive guitars over the years, and I've had the same reaction to pretty much every single one of them. There's a lot of talk online about whether really expensive guitars that include tone woods, as they are called, really make a difference, a positive difference to the sound of a guitar overall and the professionalism therefore of that instrument. Now, the people that are going to scream at you saying that it does make a difference are the same people that are trying to sell you one of those types of guitars. So think about like PRS here. KDH did a brilliant video on this, which I'll link to up here, that if you're interested is worth watching. At this point, I want to introduce you to this guitar. It's a Fender Squier from 1991 and it costs £110 sterling about 4 years ago. So obviously I bought this second hand. And it was pretty much new when I got it. It hadn't been played that much. And I chucked some bare knuckle pickups into the neck and the bridge. I bought those second hand and they cost £40 each. So at this point, we're at £190 total. Once I'd put those pickups into this guitar, I was just astonished at how amazing I thought it sounded. Subsequently, I have to admit, I played it so much that I actually wore the frets away. So it has been refretted and set up, which did cost quite a lot of money. So I subsequently spent £240 on it. But that was only because it was almost unplayable. At this point, let's just have a quick listen to this instrument. So this is a guitar solo that I recorded, I don't know, about 3 years ago, not long after I'd got this. As you can tell, one of the pickups looks slightly different. Well, just have a listen, see what you think. I mean, that has been professionally mixed and mastered, but I think you can tell it just sounds great. For me, buying a guitar is a bit like buying a pair of trainers. There's a point at which you're not spending more money to get a better shoe, you're paying more money to get a better label on the shoe. Okay, so let me just talk about that a little bit more, but in the context of guitars. So imagine that I bought a guitar for €1,000. And I also bought a guitar for €3,000. The €3,000 guitar is probably not going to be €2,000 better than the €1,000 guitar. I have to admit, there is a point here where spending a bit more does get you more for your money. So if you buy a €100 guitar and you buy a €1,000 guitar, the €1,000 guitar is probably going to be €900 better than the €100 guitar. I'm not saying that that isn't the case, but the point is that you reach a point where you're starting to pay for the logo and the name on the headstock. If you bought an Epiphone Les Paul and you compared that to a Gibson Les Paul, there isn't going to be a giant gap between those two instruments in terms of their kind of build quality and their tonal characteristics. Yes, the Gibson Les Paul is going to be better made with better components. It's going to sound possibly a little bit better, but not definitely. If you were doing a blind test and you were just listening to the sound of those two guitars, could the layman distinguish between the two? Probably not. If you own a cheap guitar and you want to improve it, what you really should consider doing is putting new pickups into it, because the pickups make a huge amount of difference to the tonal characteristics, as I said before, of the guitar. So that guitar that I showed you before, when I put the new pickups in it, it was that kind of tipped it over the edge from being just a cheap piece of crap into something that was just really nice. Have to admit, Squier Fender guitars were much better made in the early 90s than they were in the 2000s. I'm not sure about now, but I've had a guitar from each one of those eras, a Squier guitar from each one of those eras, and that one from 1991 is much better than the one that I had from the year 2000. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me or if you don't agree with me. If you want to start an argument, that'd be great. You do it. It helps with the algorithm. And I'll see you in the next one.